Welcome, everyone. We have two presentations this evening. The first will be by Jeff Hebert, DTM, District 45 Director, and he's going to speak about District Central. Jeff is Distinguished Toastmaster and has been involved with Toastmasters for more than 18 years. His journey has taken him from a corporate club where he was Sergeant at Arms in Arlington, Texas in 2000 to District Director for 2018-2019, with many roles in between. Like many of our members, Jeff joined Toastmasters to overcome the fear of public speaking. He learned that it is okay to be intimidated by an office role, and overcoming that fear was the best reason to take on the role. Jeff's leadership activities in District 45 bloomed in 2014. He recognized the district's impact that area directors and club officers had on the district mission. Their dedication and leadership helped motivate clubs through the division to reach beyond their goals. In 2016-2017, Jeff served as District Club Growth Director. It was a great challenge to bring District 45 people together. Jeff used email, conference calls, newsletter articles to help people collaborate with those clubs who are physically distant from one another. Today, Jeff will demonstrate how to use District Central and some reporting services to help district officers perform their work. Please help me welcome Jeff. And I won't. Jeff, you're the presenter. I just did. You are the presenter. Oh, but it didn't change, did it? Okay. We're okay. Jeff, we can't hear you if you can hear me.
Oh, sorry about that. That all-powerful mute worked very well. Okay, so I've sent out a link on the chat box. You can pull up this reference document. I won't be going through this document, but this document basically outlines the services that we'll be describing or discussing today. I'm going to show you how District Central works and quickly how to navigate to it, and then some of the key buttons that you guys will be using. I'll point out that this webinar this training is geared for incoming area directors, folks who may be familiar with Club Central, so you should already have an idea of how to log in to Toastmasters.org. But this will focus on some things that area directors and division directors and higher district officers use on at least a monthly basis. Some of us use it daily. We'll also look at distinguished performance reports, the so-called dashboard. And finally, I'll briefly go over a couple of references that I've found very useful and have used frequently throughout my years as a district leader. So you can play along. This is somewhat of an interactive session, and we will start by going to Toastmasters.org. I obviously go there frequently. It's part of my history. Google, almighty Google, knows that I love Toastmasters.org. So once you're at Toastmasters.org, district leaders, most of our activities, our important district leadership activities, are in Leadership Central. You may be familiar with Club Central, which is where you go for club type of business. There's also District Central, is where we go as district leaders for doing district activities. And a little bit later, we'll get to the Distinguished Performance Reports, which is another button up at the top. District Central is a permission-based interface, a portal. So everyone who has access to District Central, most folks will have different levels of access. So the first thing you have to do is you have to log in so Toastmasters knows who you are and what level of access to give you. So as I'm logging in, Toastmasters knows that I am the district director for District 45, and that's how they know what icons to show for me. There's a whole bunch of them. When you log into District Central, you'll see a different set of icons. Some of them will be the same, and some of them will be different. Another aspect of the icons that you see are, some of them are time sensitive. For instance, during the time in which we're submitting area director reports, there will be a button up near the top somewhere that says submit an area director report or an area visit report. That button is not active now because all visits were due, what was it, end of May? So we don't have that button at this point. One of the most important things that you will need to do as a district officer is find contact information for the members and the officers in your area. And all district officers can use this reports button. And it moves around a little bit, but you can pull up this reports button. And there are two main reports that you'll get. One is a list of club officers. So if you're an area director, clicking on this report and then exporting it will give you all of the club officers in your area. If you're a division director, clicking on this will give you all the club officers in your division. And as a district officer, I can run this report and get a list of all the club officers in our entire district. So by running these reports, once you select the report you want, whether it's members or club officers, they have similar information. It'll have a CSV file that has the name of the club, basically all the information that you could want about the club and the member. Email addresses, their education levels, when they joined Toastmasters, what their current membership status is, when their membership expires, things like that. They're very useful reports, and primarily we use those reports to update our email lists. So if someone ever comes to you and says that we've got the wrong email list, wrong email address for them, you can go to this report and check it and find out if they need to change their email address on their district or on their personal profile, their Toastmasters profile. Now, when you click export, it takes a few minutes. Sometimes it's pretty quick. Sometimes it takes a little longer, and each browser is a little different about how they handle the downloads. Most of them will allow you to save the CSV file, and it usually shows up in either downloads or on your desktop somewhere. Or you can, some of them will allow you to open it directly into a spreadsheet application like Excel or Sheets or some of the other spreadsheet applications. Okay, list requests is one of the most important things that you do. We talked about area visit reports. Area visit reports are not active right now, so I can't show you that. But when they are active, it's a button just like this reports. You'll click on the area visit report. It'll give you a list of, if you're an area director, all the clubs in your area. Division directors can also submit reports for area directors if for some reason an area director is not able to get onto Club or District Central or is not able to submit their report electronically. One thing that we'll talk about more in training, it's very important to submit your area reports early. Every year there's someone who waits for the last minute and tries to do them all on the last day. The reports are not difficult, but it is a little bit time consuming and tedious. So I strongly encourage you, once you get access to District Central, which should happen right at the beginning of July, sign in, find out what some of these buttons do, and once you've started doing your area visits, submit an area report right away, just so you can get a sense of the amount of work and detail that's required to fill out these reports. Another button that you'll see is Club Officer Training. This is not available to area directors, but division directors and higher district officers are able to use this button. And what this does is by clicking here, I'm able to record officer training for those who attend the district officer training, our TLIs. The information is pretty much broken down by division. So if you're, for instance, if you're Division C, right, it lists all the officers or all of the clubs in Division C, and you can record the officers that were trained. Let's see. So here's some, for instance, Division D had a TLI, and you can see for Dale Toastmasters, their VP Marketing, VP PR, Treasurer, and Sergeant at Arms all were trained. This is fairly easy to update. You just click on the boxes that need to be added and then submit. This is something that the division directors and primarily the program quality director will keep updated. See if we go back to District Central. I think that pretty much covers the primary things that you will need. There are other buttons on here. As a district director, I've listed prospective clubs, our district success plan, area and division directors. You guys all have training, so just like there's a training for club officers, we also have a report that we have to fill out for division and area directors. Oh, and this is one of my favorites, the pathways adoptions rates. So if you look through here, if we look for District 45, you'll notice that we are, does anyone know what we are, what our ranking is in the world in terms of pathways adoption rates?
We're #1.
We're #1. Oh yeah, that's right. So we have pushed the bar and gotten all of our members. 93% of our officers are enrolled in pathways, 71% of our new members, and then 80% of all of our members, which is by far, if you look at the other, the others, they're all in the 60s and 70%. So we definitely are leading the world in terms of pathways adoption. It's one of the shining stars of our district. Okay, with that, I'd like to open it up. Are there any questions that you guys have about District Central? I think honestly, at some point you'll start working through these, and you'll have a lot of, just honestly, once you get access to it, just start poking around, looking at the reports. For the most part, you can just look at them, and they're not necessarily self-evident, but once you start saying, hey, I know I have to submit an area report, then you'll be able to come here and find the button. See, Michael Aaron has a good question about if someone goes to a TLI in another district, how does that get recorded? Now, that happens in both ways. Sometimes our members get trained in another district, and sometimes people from other districts get trained in our district. The way to get credit is for that member to send an email to their program quality director for their district and say that I was trained at such and such a TLI. Now, often the records, the division director who did the training for someone in another district will also send that email and copy the member in question. So either way, we definitely, that's done through email, and it's kind of a manual process. But it is very important because folks that are trained, they deserve the credit. Okay, so I see lots of folks that are saying thank you to Carl Dwyvenvoorden and the Everest and K2 awards. Yes, they definitely helped incentivize a lot of our members. All right, our next topic is the Distinguished Performance Report. Now you'll notice on District Central, you can click the button right here and go to the Distinguished Performance Reports. And that takes us right to the dashboard for District 45. You can also, from Leadership Central, right, when you click on Leadership Central to get this menu, you can click on the Distinguished Performance Reports. And that brings you to kind of a higher level of the report. So once you're here, you've got to find our district. And there are a couple of ways to find our district. You can scroll through the list of districts. And if you remember, we are District 45. Or you might know that we're actually in Region 9. So these are organized by region. You can go all the way to Region 9, here's Region 9, and find us in this list, District 45. So one thing that's nice about this report is this shows how our district is doing compared to other districts. And you'll notice actually it's fairly dismal. We're down quite a bit. So are a lot of other districts. In fact, very few districts have achieved distinguished status. And those that have, well, they've had to work very hard to be distinguished. All right, so let's go to our performance report for District 45. The top level report, you'll notice this report has several different levels, right? There's the top level, which is for the district performance. For the most part, you guys will be interested in the division and area report, and often the club performance report, and I'll show you how each of those works in a minute here. The district performance, this shows kind of at a very high level a dashboard of our district status. We have 102 paid clubs, right, which is roughly a 10% loss of our initial base of 113 clubs. Yes, that's a tough number. Now we're also down in terms of membership payments. This is a little bit odd. It's basically twice the number of members that we have in our district. So we have a payment in the fall and then one again in the spring. So this is the way that Toastmasters International tracks our membership activities. And then our number of distinguished clubs. We have 31 clubs that has reached distinguished status, which is also a little bit low. We typically have, at this time of year, 45 to 55 clubs that are distinguished. So we're a bit behind on that metric also. There's a lot of other interesting and useful information at this level, but this is primarily used by the senior leadership team to understand how the district is performing. You guys will find probably the most benefit from the division and area performance. So as we see right now, we have 7 divisions. In the future, we'll have 6 divisions as we've consolidated divisions D and F. A total of 25 areas and 102 paid clubs. This is something that's often noted and frustrating. These numbers here can be different from the numbers on the other screens. Sometimes there's a little bit of a timing difference. But anyways, the important thing here is you can, again, look at your division and area status. This shows how close you are to being distinguished. That we have information here about club renewals, about area visit reports when they were submitted, and then the membership numbers and the number of goals that each club has achieved. So one thing that's helpful here is, like for area 10 here, you've got your area goals. To be a distinguished area, the area has to have 5 paid clubs, which they have, and 3 or more distinguished clubs. They only have 1. So this particular area, area 10, has 1 distinguished club, which is Portsmouth Toastmasters, and they've got 3 other clubs, 4 other clubs, well, 3 other clubs that are very close to achieving distinguished. So if any one of these clubs or 2 of these clubs need to become distinguished in order for them to achieve the distinguished status. Are there any questions on how this area report works? No questions in the chat box, which is good. Either I'm putting you all to sleep or you guys all completely understand what's going on here. Yeah, these reports are pretty handy. Right now we're at the end of the year, and it's very helpful to see where things are. Earlier in the year, the reports are a little bit sparse. That's one thing I wanted to show you is you can look back in history and see what was going on with the district, for instance, back in January, February, March. Right at the beginning of the year, there wasn't a lot of information because not a lot of people by the end of July, there's not a lot of goals completed. We haven't started doing renewals, right? So there's not a lot of information, not a lot of progress. But by the time January comes around, So you'll notice I just switched from December or from July to January. So in January, now you can see all of the October renewals have happened, all the club visits have happened. We've got membership renewals are accounted for, and clubs are showing off how many goals they've achieved. So, you know, this point in the year, halfway through, you start to get a sense of how your club is doing this year compared to historical performance. Let's go back to current. The club performance is right next to division area. So the club performance is really based on club goals. So if you're interested in comparing what goals your various clubs have achieved, this is really the best place to look. You can see how clubs are doing on the educational goals. You can see how clubs are doing in membership and other training and administrative activities. Finally, if you want to look at a specific club, right, you guys are probably familiar with this report, individual club status, that just tells you about the status of what that particular club has done, all the goals, the things that they need to achieve the next level, and how many members are required in order to be a distinguished club. So this particular club had 20 members. They currently have 15 members, but they need 20 to be distinguished. So even though they've got 8 goals, and that's enough for them to be select distinguished, the fact that they've only got 15 members means that they're not eligible to be a distinguished club. So they need 5 members, members desperately. So if you can help them get those 5 members, that will help them get over the edge. Okay, so that is pretty much your dashboard and how it works and how you find information about clubs. There's a lot more information on this website. For instance, you can go to the daily reports. Over on the left side, there's a button called Other Reports. Let's see if I can highlight it. So you've got daily reports and additional reports. So I'm going to briefly show you how the daily reports and the additional reports work. So when I go to the daily reports, these reports are called daily because they're updated daily. They're not updated weekly. Sorry, Michael, it's not weekly, it's daily. But there's all sorts of interesting and useful stuff on this page. You can find information about dues renewal. The October dues renewal report is one of the first reports that you guys will be looking at. And this shows you, basically, it's a list of who's renewed and when they've renewed. And you can see all of these are saying verified complete, except for the 2 new clubs that we had early in the year. There are a whole host of reports. The educational achievements is helpful. You can go to this report, and for instance, you can sort it by area and go and find your area. Say if you're area 10, where's area 10? So you can find area 10, and you can find all the people who've earned awards in your area. So that's helpful each month as you look to recognize folks who have achieved educational awards. This is a report that you can use to find that. Let's see. There are reports on new clubs, prospective clubs. There's an educational achievement archive if you're interested in seeing who's achieved awards in the past. And certainly stuff on club coaches, sponsors, and mentors, and of course, Triple Grounds. So these reports are very handy to figure out information that's kind of up-to-the-date information on educational achievements and DCP goals. Over on the left, we also have these additional reports. Now, this is stuff that's created by one of our past international presidents. These reports kind of give us information on how Toastmasters clubs are performing in our district. So if we scroll down and find District 45, this almost distinguished report is one of the helpful ones, right? So we find District 45, click on almost distinguished, And especially here near the end of the year, this gives us a list of all the clubs who are close to being distinguished, right? This club has 8 goals, but only 15 members, so they need 5 new members to be distinguished. This club, Exeter Speaks Up, they have enough members, but they need one more goal to be distinguished. So these reports are helpful for you to go off and find out which clubs are close to being distinguished and what they need to do to get over that hump. Another aspect of this report that's really helpful is the area to-dos. So as you go through the year, this report will give you information on kind of what are the things that you need to do in order to achieve a distinguished area or division. At this point, for instance, Division A needs 1 more paid club to be distinguished and 4 more distinguished clubs. So actually, I think this is stale. This seems late because we were just looking at the other report that said Division A was, Area 10 needs what? You guys remember? Area 10 has enough clubs, but they need 2 more clubs to be distinguished. So that's one problem with these other reports, is sometimes they're a little bit delayed. So this is as of Saturday. So it may not quite have the latest and greatest information. Okay, so these are a couple of report areas that are very helpful in finding information about your clubs. I've got 2 more areas where I think will be important. One thing to note about these distinguished reports, distinguished performance reports, these are all open to the public. All members can look at these reports. In fact, when you look at your club reports, you may not realize it. If you're familiar with looking at your club report, you can very easily look at the higher levels and very quickly see how your club compares with other clubs in the area or division. Okay, but let's talk about 2 other reports that I've found very helpful. Actually, 2 websites that have a host of reports. One is called TM Tools, or Toastmasters Tools. I usually find it by Googling TM Tools. So either one word or separate, and you can see right here, the first one that comes up, well, I'll actually search for it. One of the first ones that comes up is Tools for Toastmasters at marshalls.org. So George Marshall is a prominent Toastmaster in California, and he's been working with Toastmasters and reports for decades. I find this report really interesting and very helpful. You can do things like look up educational awards. Right, I want to find educational awards for a specific member. I can click on that report. So here, let me go back. I'm clicking right here on the member. So when I click on that, I can type in a member name, say my name. And it shows all the educational awards that I've earned over the last several years. Now you'll note that these awards, the member number and the name is omitted. Toastmasters International, with this recent, they've requested that these reports keep names hidden. So I've been reduced to an obscure number and character references. But needless to say, George Marshall in his background has linked this to my actual member number and knows that I indeed have earned all these awards in these different clubs. So this stuff is pretty handy if you're looking for your own personal award history, or if you're looking for awards for a particular member or club. There are other things you can do, is you can look at education awards for a particular club. For instance, remember 1094, that club that we were talking about earlier, they had a whole bunch of educational awards achieved this year. You can pull this report up and see in 2019, 2018, and 2019, these are all the awards that that club has earned. So this is another way that you can go and look for history and performance. The final report I'm going to show you is called, is from George Rafferty. I usually Google Rafferty. It's not George Rafferty, it's Mike Rafferty. DCP history. Or you might Google Toastmasters DCP history. But this report by Mike Rafferty is a report that I love. It's fairly easy. You type in a club number. If you don't know the club number, you can go to the club status. You can search for the club, find the club number, and then type it into the report. And once you type it into the report, this gives a lot of the same kind of information that we saw on that previous report. You know, the history of the club. You can see the number of members. You can see the number of goals they've earned. And then this table down on the bottom, all right, this table at the bottom gives you detailed breakdown of all the different activities. So things I look for with this are, first, I look at what is the membership trend. You know, this particular club looks like it was doing pretty well. I'm sorry, this is their DCP trend. So they were pretty consistent of getting 4, 5, 6 awards, and then they had a period of time where they were getting 8 and 9 awards. And then if you look at their membership history, it kind of follows. You notice the same pattern, right? So they were moving along. They were kind of middling, 14, 15 members. They were achieving awards and finishing programs. But it wasn't until they started getting 20 and 25 members before they were really able to get 8, 9 goals and become a distinguished club. I like to look at these. You know, when I was an area director, I didn't have this report, so I had to kind of piece this history together to figure out, you know, where is my club today and where was it last year and the year before, and what kind of things have changed in this particular club. These reports help to tell a story about how each club has performed. Now you can go back with this report and look at entire areas. You can look at our entire district or division. So if you find this helpful, this is definitely something that helps you get a sense of where your clubs are and what they might need to do in order to survive, and to thrive. Well, my fellow Toastmasters, I think that's the primary gist of what I wanted to show you today about how to use the District Central, the Distinguished Performance Reports, and then a couple of additional reporting tools that give you additional insights into our clubs and the history of some of our clubs. So at this point, I'd like to ask if there are any other questions before I turn it back to our chair.
Jeff, it's Carolyn.
Carolyn.
Hi. Got a couple of questions. It's great that everything, well, this is the first time I've ever seen anything like this, so for me it's a bit overwhelming, but that's okay. It's a good way to learn.
And that's why we had that that text document, by the way,
right?
Because it has links to each of these pages and also kind of examples to jog your memory about what's available and where.
That's great. I just have a question of slightly different nature. In your time with Toastmasters, in your current position, with whether you're talking to other district directors in North America, or at that level, what is their feeling about the decline in membership? Like, why is it happening?
Oh, wow.
I know that's a loaded question.
That is loaded, and that's a huge question.
Are there many answers?
I'm not sure that I really want to get into it too much, but okay. Yeah, there's lots of different answers. Much of it, much of it stems around, you'll notice that this year at Toastmasters International, in fact, on Leadership Central, there's this bit about the wow factor, right? Remember the wow factor?
Correct.
See if I can highlight the wow factor. All right, the wow factor was all about how do we get members remembering how Toastmasters impacted our lives and then sharing that with others. We, in our district and across all of North America, honestly, we're kind of in a point where people just simply are not talking about how great Toastmasters is. And I don't know how to fix that. I don't know if we'll ever be able to fix that, but that is a fact of life. And when we look at the distinguished performance reports, right, so regions 1 through 9 are generally North America, and you'll see there's very few of these districts are distinguished, right? They're all struggling, where most of our districts are down in membership and down in the number of clubs. But where there's a lot of excitement is in Asia and India, and even in the Middle East, where Toastmasters is relatively new, and there's a lot of excitement there. Folks are talking about how Toastmasters is changing their lives, and those districts are growing very quickly. So honestly, there's a lot of reasons for why things are not growing quickly in the US. Partially, we're somewhat of a saturated market, and folks have a lot of options, right? There are much more expensive programs that provide similar training, and there's also easier programs that don't necessarily provide as much thorough, deep content, but they're good enough for what a lot of people need. So
Thank you very much.
Carolyn, is not a great answer, but that's the answer as I get it.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for your presentation. Now in the next few seconds, we'll be switching to the next presentation, which is Lesley Bechtold.
I think I can make her the presenter, can't I?
Give it a shot. I'm going to close this screen. Not.
Oh, I cannot. I have to give up presentership.
Okay, hang on.
Lesley, while you're getting organized or oriented there, I'll say I am an engineer and I love all of these reports. Toastmasters makes it relatively easy for us to find the status. But there are times when we can't find that status, and you'll notice in the document that I sent out, there's a pro tip that every month there's sort of a dead zone, about a week time frame when those reports are not updated. So if you're looking for information on July 1st, you won't find it. Toastmasters doesn't update the reports until mid-July.
Jeff,
Yes.
can you make me presenter, because I can't get to Lesley?
I did.
Yeah, and I can't share my screen yet.
All right, just a minute.
Oh, Lesley, you're the presenter. You should be able to. You should be able to click on a little icon that says share your screen. It'll be right next to the microphone.
I am blocked out. Let's cancel the screen, share my screen.
Okay. No, wrong one. Okay. Don't know how to. Okay.
Hey, Carolyn, why don't you take control again, share your screen, or make yourself the presenter.
Okay.
Share your screen, make sure that that feature is working.
Okay, that's me.
Yep. Make sure you can share your screen. Yep, we see your screen reimbursements with Lesley Bechtold.
Okay.
So Lesley, you can click on, there should be a button that says share your screen, and that will send a request to Catherine.
It says become the presenter to start sharing your screen. I'm not the presenter yet.
Yep, but you just sent a request, so Catherine should be able to make you the presenter. And we're hearing a lot of feedback from your microphone, Lesley.
Okay, Lesley, I've made you the presenter.
So you should be able to click that button again, Lesley, and it'll ask you what you want to present or what you want to share.
Right, but the share button isn't highlighted.
Hang on a minute. Now try it.
It says I'm not the presenter.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's changed again. Okay.
On my screen.
Jeff, do I have to share my screen or does that on her?
No, Lesley has to share her screen.
Okay.
But it could be, Lesley, that you've got your computer set to not allow screen sharing.
Oh.
I don't know how to fix that. So if that's the case, we can, you can talk me, I can share the screen and show folks how to do a report. You can just kind of talk me through it.
This is, sync is off, turn on sync. Let me see. Ah, there we go. Share, come on. Share my screen, come on. Oh, this is really frustrating.
Okay, let's abort this. So Lesley, you talk. Go ahead and make me the presenter,
Okay.
Catherine, and then I will pull up the. I'll pull up the whatever this Concur website, and Lesley can talk me through doing a.
Can I send you my slides?
Oh, you have slides?
I have slides.
Why do you have slides? Yeah, go ahead and send me the slides.
Slides were up at one point.
All right, hang on. Give me a minute here. All right, Jeff, it's coming your way.
We seem to be seeing Leslie's, or no, Jeff, I guess that's you who brought up Concur, but Leslie's PowerPoint was up there for a moment.
Hmm.
I'm staring.
Well, I've got Leslie's slides now. Do you want to try one more time to get Lesley as the presenter, or just move over to having me show the slides?
Whichever works. I have you as presenter now, Jeff. Can I run with it?
Okay.
Okay. Before you do, let me do the intro, please. Okay.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Lesley Bechtold has been an active member of MDI Toastmaster Club for 6 years. Although she was not particularly interested in developing her public speaking skills, she did recognize that Toastmasters would help her in her practice as senior management of the Histopathology Sciences Department at Jackson Laboratory. Her husband, Bob Bechtold, DTM, had already been active in the club, and Lesley realized that Toastmasters would be fun and educational. Several years ago, when she served as district secretary during 2013-2014 Toastmasters year, during a casual conversation with Jeff Hebert, she said that she might be willing to serve as finance manager for the district. 2 years later, when Jeff was elected to the position of district director, he recalled the conversation that he had with Lesley and asked her if she would be willing to serve as finance manager. With over 20 years' experience in managing operational and capital budgets that exceed $2 million a year, Lesley hoped to bring her experience and knowledge of fiscal management to serve the members of the District 45 for the year 2018-2019. Most significantly during this year, she has enrolled many of the district directors, area directors, and other D45 Toastmasters into the Concur system of expense reporting and reimbursement. Moving into the electronic system has not been easy. It has many bumps. However, the ability to review and approve expense reports electronically has allowed members to receive reimbursement more quickly on both sides of the border in District 45. Tonight, she will spend a few moments reviewing the basics of Concur and encouraging new groups of directors to sign up for Concur accounts if they have not already done. Please welcome Lesley and Jeff.
Thanks, Carolyn. Jeff, can you go to the next slide, please? All right, tonight I just want to do a brief introduction to Concur. Based on the people that are listening tonight, a lot of you already have Concur memberships, but just briefly, Concur is a software system and it's used by many businesses to reimburse their employees, or in the case of Toastmasters, volunteers, for any of their travel and other expenses that they might incur. Can you do the next slide, please, Jeff? Who should be using Concur? Everybody. Area directors, division directors, the senior leaders, sometimes club officers if they're requesting reimbursement for TLIs or open houses. Club coaches might request reimbursement. There's really no limit to who can use Concur. Next slide, Jeff, please. These are just some of the things that you can get reimbursed for. Mileage is 14 cents a mile if you're in the US, or 18 cents a kilometer if you're in Canada. And there is a caveat. If you're requesting mileage, it has to be greater than 30 miles each way in the States or 50 kilometers each way in Canada. If you want to be reimbursed for TLIs, you can request up to $350 twice a year. If you have and that's per division. If you have multiple winter TLIs or multiple summer TLIs, they all have to fall within that $350 budget. Conference registrations, you can get some of your fees back for that. Open houses and hotels are sometimes. There's certain situations where you might be reimbursed for a hotel. For example, this past year we had an area director who had several clubs that she had to visit, and they were quite far flung. So she asked if she could consolidate all her trips into a 2 or 3 day sort of jaunt and get reimbursed for hotels. And Jeff and I reviewed her request and she was approved for that. Next slide, please, Jeff. I always tell people that if you want to be enrolled in Concur, it's a 2-step process. Oops. Coming back. And the first thing that has to happen is that your information has to be submitted to World Headquarters by your finance manager. World Headquarters updates the information every Thursday evening. And once they've done that, you need to log into Concur and then create an account, which should, of course, include your name, your address, that sort of information, as well as your banking information. Once you've done that, Concur will do a test deposit of 1 penny. And it was kind of funny, in Canada, of course, they're not using pennies anymore, but Toastmasters in Canada were getting that 1 cent deposit, and they were a little confused, but it's just Concur testing your banking information. Once that's done, you can submit your expenses in Concur. And Jeff, could you go to the next slide, please? And this is where I wanted to have a live demo. Jeff, any chance you can open up Concur? Great. So if you log into Concur, you can see that Jeff's got one open report. Do you mind opening that up, Jeff? And so Jeff is requesting to be reimbursed for postage and shipping. These are expenses he incurred. So he's up at the very top there on the left under postage and shipping. See where it says add a new expense? So you would add a new expense, put in the expense type. For example, if it's an area director visit, if it's a TLI, if it's a conference, a speech contest, whatever it is, put something in there so that your finance manager looking at it right away knows what kind of expense you're asking to reimburse for.
I think actually this one, it's going to be, the type is mileage, lodging.
Yeah.
Right, those are the main things that they'll be doing. Some of them will be other.
Yep. So if you, let's say we're requesting mileage. So put that in there. All right. So you want to put in, obviously, the date that you made that trip, the business purpose, city of purchase, and this is all fairly self-explanatory. Now, if you're registered in Concur and you've got all your information in there, it will automatically select a currency for you. Jeff lives in Maine, so the currency it selects for him is US dollars. If you change that, the system will get confused and it'll kick back your report. So don't change it. If you're requesting mileage and you're in Canada, I know it says number of miles, just put in the number of kilometers. Don't try and convert it back and forth. And then calculate your mileage, which is 18 cents a kilometer or 14 cents a mile. And then in the comments, you can add something there. The other thing you need to know about Concur is that every expense must be accompanied by a receipt of some sort. If it's mileage, you'll need to upload a picture of the map with the mileage on it. If it's food and it's a receipt, you need to scan your receipts, take a picture of it, save it to your desktop somehow, and then attach it to that expense. And we don't have anything to select there, so we're just gonna, Jeff will just cancel out of that. Once you, oh, there you go, that's great. And then you can cancel receipts, you can cancel reports, but if this is all set to go, you want to hit that submit report up in the corner. All right, Jeff, can we cancel out of this, please? Or get out of this and go to the next slide? All right. When you submit a report, here's what I'll see. If you look down in my in basket there, you'll see expense report pending your approval. So you can scroll down again, Jeff, please. So when I see those in my inbox, I log into Concur and I see that I have an expense report. So I'll go through it, check to make sure everything's correct. The receipts are all there, and then I'll approve it. And once I approve it, this is what you'll see. You'll get a little email that says, oh, your expense report status has changed. And you'll see that it's changed status, it's been approved. And then keep scrolling down, Jeff. And then once the finance manager has approved it, it goes to the director. Once the director has approved it, Toastmasters International checks it over briefly electronically, and then finally, a day or two later, you'll get a little email that says your expense has been approved, and the money should show up in your account within 24 to 48 hours. And that's pretty much it. So last slide, Jeff. Any questions from anybody?
Lesley, it's Heather. You said that the mileage was 30 miles or 50 kilometers one way. That's round trip.
I'm looking up here, it says more than 30 miles or 50 miles from your kilometers from your home based on round trip.
Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, sorry.
That. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
round trip, sorry.
Yeah. Helen.
Anybody else? No? You're welcome.
Yeah, I'll add, if they're, just like Heather and Lesley had that question, we frequently have to refer back to the district procedures, and this will be part of a new officer package, but you can find the procedures from our District 45 homepage.
Yep,
it's in
there.
procedures, forms, and reports. So again, that's the procedures, forms, and reports, and our copy of the district procedures right here. So that should be our latest and greatest procedures. If it's not, definitely let us know and we'll make sure you get the updated version of it loaded up onto this page.
The question was asked,
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I saw
even
that
after
there.
years of working with this document, I have to look at it every month to figure out, did we cover that? Is it like, just like Heather said, it's round trip, not one way, or is it one way?
Yeah, every once in a while, I'm like, oh, I have to look at this again.
Yeah.
Do we need to submit a request to join Concur to Lesley? After Tuesday, I am not the point person for this. I think there's a week of downtime. And then starting July 1st, the new finance manager, Kevin Chip, will be taking over submitting people for Concur accounts and approving their expense reports. I sort of whipped my whip and, tried to encourage people to get everything in that they possibly could before the end of June. But I'm sure there are probably a couple of people out there who just didn't get it in on time.
Yeah, last year we had someone that submitted like 3 or 4 expense reports right on July 31st, right at the end of the year. So, do what you can, try and get them done early, but definitely earlier is better. Lesley's been fantastic this year at reminding us to submit reports at the end of each month, especially when we have major events like conference or TLIs.
Kevin had a question about Concur, about passports and ID information. That's really up to you. I have a separate Concur account through work because at work we use Concur also. And in there I have my passport information, my green card information, all that kind of stuff. But for Toastmasters, that's really up to you.
Right, I'll say that under profile settings, that's where most of this stuff is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to click here because you guys might see all my stuff.
Right.
I didn't test it. But anyways, in the profile settings, there's a whole bunch of questions. I think the only thing that we really need is the banking information in order to get your deposits. I do think there is an option to say I don't want to link my bank account and force Concur to send you a check. Is that true, Lesley? I don't think anyone has done that, but I think that's an option.
Yeah, I've never actually run into that. And one of the reasons we're going through Concur and Toastmasters International is really encouraging everybody to get in Concur, because it just, that way all of the expenses are recorded, through our district reserve account, which is great. We have all that information. It's also a lot faster. I mean, I can look at a report and be done with it in a couple of minutes. But if I have to fill out forms, get Jeff to sign them, I have to sign them, mail checks, all that kind of stuff, it just takes a long time.
It does. That's true. Heather, did you have an insight
yeah,
into?
it is an option that you can have a check sent to you instead, but it takes several weeks for that to be done. So
Right.
you're not
And
going
you
to
kind
get
of lose.
your expenses paid quickly. The
Yeah.
passport information is for, because Concur is set up that you could arrange travel through it. Now, we don't
Oh,
arrange
right.
any travel through Concur, and even travel that TI pays for is not done through the Concur system. They use another company. So there's no need to put in the passport information. That's the only reason that that's
Right.
there. All you need is your banking information.
Right. So I know that every now and then when I log into Concur, it tells me I get a free Trip It Pro subscription and I can use Concur to book travel. Just like Heather said, it's optional. Use it if you want.
Jeff, it's Carolyn. I have a question from Heather Fairchild. I have an off-subject question. Would I be able to send members of my new, not quite chartered club to TLI in July? I'm not sure of the paperwork.
That is outstanding. That's an excellent idea and strongly encouraged. I think Heather Perkins already answered this, and she's exactly right. It is great to have officers in a newly forming club. If they go through TLI, the officer training, they get to meet other officers, they get information and experience that they cannot get any other way, and it really sets a stage for them to be more successful as the new club forms. I'll tell you, we've had cases in the past where we've created a special training events just to train that one club. You know, it's basically done by the sponsors and mentors. They get together and create a ad hoc TLI just for that one club. And those clubs do not have nearly the strength coming out of the gate that other newly formed clubs that actually had even 2 or 3 officers attending a TLI. Now, that said, I don't believe that there's any credit to be had for those officers, because until they're an actually chartered club, there's really not any credit that they can get for being trained.
But once they are chartered, then they'll get it.
That's exactly right. Once they are chartered, then you have to remember to go back and make sure that you check those boxes, assuming they charter within the TLI season.
Great, thank you very much. I'd like to thank Lesley and Jeff for a wonderful webinar, and we learned a lot, and we may not have questions right now, but we may be able to think of some soon, and we'll send you emails. How about that?
All right.
At least in the next few days, anyway. So I'd like to thank everybody for attending tonight's webinar, and look forward to seeing you at the next one, which will be announced. So keep your ears listening and your eyes peeled, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good week, everybody.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you. Good night.
Jeff, it's not Catherine, it's Carolyn.
I said that twice tonight, didn't I?
3 times.
3 times.
I'll wait till the end of this, then I'll enlighten
I'm sorry, Carolyn.